Hi, good evening, and welcome to the Progressive Party's virtual town hall meeting. Um, we are now logging in here. We have our board of directors. So thus far, we have Morgan Ramkalawan, our deputy political leader, and Kelsey Nanku, our secretary, and myself, Nikolai Edwards, as political leader. And soon we'll have Nichelle Batiste, our chief financial officer. Let me apologize on my end. I know the lighting isn't the best right now, but hopefully, as we move along, things would change there. But essentially, through our virtual town hall meeting, the intention is to be able to address many of the issues that the general public has when it comes to politics in Trinidad and Tobago, questions about the Progressive Party, where we stand, what we are about. So we're taking this opportunity to address those things. We have seen that the Prime Minister has called the general election on August 10th. And what does that mean essentially for Trinidad and Tobago? What does that mean for the Progressive Party? What does that mean for our democracy moving into this general election? So those are some of the things that we intend to address. Now, if you are on our Facebook, our Twitter, our YouTube channel, once you send in comments on those platforms, we will be able to receive them and we should be able to pull them up on the screen. We know that this is beaming from other platforms, but if you go onto our official channels and you comment, we will be able to address those. So thus far, I want to ask if Morgan at this point can jump in and just speak a bit about the party and where we are at right now, especially for a lot of the newcomers who have never heard about the Progressive Party before and wondering what is this all about. So Morgan, if I can toss over to you.
Yeah, sure. Good evening, everyone. Sorry that I ran a little late. But basically, concerning our party, we are a new party. We only launched about little over a year ago. And basically, since then, we have made a lot of strides in our movement. We are a political ideology that really leans towards the left. But what we're really aiming for in this election and how many seats, well, we already have a question of how many seats we are contesting. Currently, we have one seat officially, which is from our political leader, Mr. Nikolai Edwards. And then we are hoping to contest at least 5 concerning this election. Now, we wanted to contest all 41 when we first launched. And when we had our general meeting on December 17th, we had a very ambitious goal of doing 41 seats. However, given the circumstances of right now, we won't be able to fulfill all those seats, but we are going to strive for our best to fulfill 5 seats. Because all it really takes is one change and one person to really make a difference in this country, and we have seen that before. But what we are missing right now is proper representation, and we don't have that in our parliament right now. I actually was having a conversation with someone today about this, and Trinidad and Tobago has a median age of 36 years old. Our party, our executive, are all 20-something-year-old individuals, but our median age is 36-year-olds. But our parliamentarians are all over the age of 60, some maybe 50-something. So we don't have a youth representation in Parliament, and we are constantly seeing how this is encompassing itself in our society, because the youth are one of the most important aspects in our country. And we are seeing the disenfranchisement of our youth slowly bubbling over. And we are getting to the point that we cannot consistently move on this direction anymore. And that is why the Progressive Party is here. We are not only a representative of the youth, we are a representative of a new wave of change that Trinidad and Tobago so desperately needs. So really, that is what we need. We need fresh individuals who have not been here since the 1990s and the 1980s and 2000s, early 2000s, who have profited from the system that we currently have right now and are not doing their job who have forgotten why they are involved in politics, who have forgotten why they have contested seats to become members of parliament. We are not seeing that anymore. They have completely lost their way. And we need to do something about that. And this year is 2020. It is the year of change. Not only have we seen change with COVID-19 and all of the challenges that we have all faced together as a nation, but for the first time in a very long time, third parties are now given the chance, a solid chance to really compete effectively against our bigger, I wouldn't say rivals, but the two traditional parties, because we cannot do campaigning the way that we are used to. We cannot have these large political rallies and all of these drowning out sort of movements that we've seen in the past. Now they are coming into our sphere, our arena of social media and trying to get in touch with people on a more organic base. And they are struggling, and they are really struggling. And we are finally able, as third parties and alternative parties actually, to really make a difference. So we are hoping that this election, given the gravity of the situation and the state of our country right now, we have no better time for change. And I am really hoping that this message is something that you also aspire to, and something that you are wishing for yourself and for your kids and for your grandchildren, if that is your future, because the future and dependency of our country depends on this. So, Nikolai, Kelsey.
Nice. Thanks for that, Morgan.
No
So
problem.
that really and truly brings you into the fray in terms of understanding where we are and what we're doing. And you know, it's interesting when we think about the age of our politicians. I want to make this point that the Prime Minister, the current Prime Minister, who is 70 years old, he entered politics in 1991, the same year that I was born. So just imagine we have this individual whose entire political career is my entire age. All right. So it makes me wonder, and many others around us, how can we really have effective policies? How can we effectively have legislation if that legislation and those policies are not able to reflect our society and what the future looks like? We think that in order to have legislation and policies that are going to take us into the next 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, it requires consultation and involvement at the highest levels in order to achieve those things. So we want to make it very clear that we think that the Prime Minister and the opposition leader need to step aside and allow for younger leadership to take place. You can't tell me that in the PNM and in the UNC, there are not individuals who are well qualified to serve on leadership positions. Why do we constantly have this issue where we are not able to essentially have proper planning, all right, in terms of preparing for the future? We have individuals who are well qualified, and us, we are all university graduates, all right? We have benefited from the Government Assistance for Tuition Expenses Program, GATE, and we feel quite confidently that having the education, the experiences, we are qualified to take advantage of the opportunities to serve in Trinidad and Tobago, all right? And it is from this place that I know no young person in Trinidad and Tobago can argue against that. We want to see young professionals in our parliament and not pawns, all right? And I have to make a point there, not pawns. It is not about tokenism. We cannot have individuals simply who are placed there as window dressing. We want to ensure that the individuals who are given the opportunity to serve in our parliament are there because of the right reasons. We think such individuals are the ones who are connected, who are in the spaces and in the places that matter, and who have the experiences more than ever to really sell progress, all right? And one of the things, the reason why we called this party the Progressive Party is because we believe in that term progress. I'm sure the elders speak about speaking things into being. And we are a party that is saying to Trinidad and Tobago that the time for progress is now. It's not a matter of simply the time for change is now, because I often see change. You can go forward, you can go backward, you can go left, you can go right. Progress, however, is forward ever moving. All right. So there is no upset when it comes to progress. Everyone wants to see progress. Kelsey, if you can chime in here, as secretary of the party and having, especially over the last couple of weeks, our various interactions with various political parties, individuals, and so forth, as a young person, now as a politician, what has that experience been like? Because there are many young people, I think, who are wondering if politics really is for them. And I think that you can speak your truth here and let persons know why getting involved in politics is not a nasty thing, it's not a bad thing. So I want to give you that opportunity to chime in.
Okay. So for me, it was very difficult for me to understand and accept myself as being a politician. I think that a lot of people our age, our parents most times didn't get to finish, let's say even secondary school, some didn't get to finish primary school. And it really is a blessing to be able to achieve all the things that persons my age have been able to achieve. Now, there are some people that still live in the country that have not been able to do some of these things. And we have to ask ourselves why. A very good point was made to me today. There are people in the 21st century in Trinidad and Tobago that still have latrines, whereas there are some people that have multiple functioning bathrooms just in one household that might have, let's say, two or three persons in it. This inequality is really something that should not be a standard in Trinidad and Tobago. It should be at least at the bare minimum that people have access to running water daily. People have access to transport, reliable transport. And all of these issues are issues that really plague persons like myself, because let's say you are young, you just come out of secondary school, most times you have to rely on public transport to be able to get everywhere. Not everybody has a mother with a car, father with a car, an aunt or an uncle that can pick them up every now and again, drop them off. So little things like these is why we need to have public facilities that are effective and that are efficient. So for me, getting involved in politics was to hone in on that, to fix these issues, to make sure that we are, to try to better the situation. Because for over, let's say, 40 years, since 1962, that we have been an independent, obviously something is not working. Obviously it's not, we can't keep doing the same thing and expect to get a different result. People say that's stupidity, insanity. So getting involved in politics was to try to change the scene. We have been, as I said, we've been doing the same thing for how many years, and we still stuck. And I don't want to use the word stuck because we can't change it, we can't fix it. How can we fix it? People say if you're not seeing the change, be the change. So that was the whole effort and ideology behind it. Why get involved? Because it doesn't look like anybody else is gonna do it. So we have to try to do it. We the young people, because we at some point are gonna, let's say, mate with somebody, make children, have families, and we want to make sure that our children and even our children's children have a better life in Trinidad and Tobago. In the year 2050, nobody in Trinidad should have a latrine. Nobody in Trinidad should have a latrine. That is just ridiculous. You know what I mean? And we can't wait to say, okay, well, 2025 is their year. No, what are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? It doesn't make any sense. If, let's say, on August 11th, nothing changes, the only parties that are in the government or in the parliament, the UNC and the PNM, why are we here? Why are we here? As I said, we've been independent for over 50 years now, and we don't have much to say for it. Yes, independence is a blessing. Yes, being a republic is a blessing. Yes, having a car is a blessing. Yes, having oil, but oil that we're doing what? Mismanaging. We have a country that basically we have the potential to operate at 50, and we're barely surviving at 20. We have increasing debt, and to be quite honest, our public debt is so intense, it's not funny. Yet they will tell you, well, we're borrowing from here and we're doing this for you. They give you $500 in a grant, and you're feeling good about yourself. No, this can't happen. These are things that we have to change, because if it doesn't change now, it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. And I think all of that is probably why I get a tad bit frustrated when people are like, oh, I voted PNM till I did. So you don't care. You don't care if something happens. And, like all these scandals that we have had, like I'm not cool with paying parish rent. Are you all cool with paying parish rent? No, these are things that we have to change. And a lot of people don't pay attention to certain facts because it hurts. But we as young people we have to be prepared to bite the bullet. So that's just how I feel.
Thanks a lot, Kelsey. And you obviously raised some valid points, and I think points that we all can agree with, without doubt, that now we really have to do something different. We can't continue to do the same thing over and over. And as you speak about, we shouldn't be paying parishes rent, and that is a very valid what we have to consider, and I want to make it a very strong point that I feel very passionate about this. We are in a situation right now where the government and the People's National Movement, as well as the United National Congress, have been taking people in this country for idiots. And that's the nicest way that I can put it. Because you have a situation where for 4.5 years, this current government has abused the population insofar as, or taken advantage of the population. They have lied to us about the programs and initiatives that they mentioned in their manifesto. They have lied to us about bringing certain reforms, all right? We can speak about one, the procurement legislation. This government has had a prime opportunity to bring the regulations to Parliament that would have then led to the full implementation of the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Act 2015. Note well in the title, 2015. What that means is that this legislation was passed in our nation's parliament since 2015. But after having successive governments and so forth, we have only been able to achieve the board being installed and the Office of Procurement Regulation being set up. I can speak from experience because I had the honor and the privilege to be appointed to the procurement board. But I obviously resigned because I picked up this road in terms of trying to fight in our nation's politics for better. And you see that we have up to today, because we were appointed in 2018, and today the legislation has not been fully operationalized. And let me tell you about this legislation. If this legislation were to fully be operationalized, you see things such as kickbacks, you see things such as ministers being able to step in and award contracts and so forth. All of these things would be done. There will not be room for it. And the Prime Minister, all right, and let me say this very clearly, because it really gets to a point where we deserve better. The Prime Minister is coward in his actions in terms of not bringing the proper legislation that we need. Another opportunity or another instance that we can discuss very clearly is the Representation of the People Amendment Bill 2020. This People's National Movement government promised the people of Trinidad and Tobago that we will get campaign finance reform. Here we are on the eve of an election, and that legislation has not yet been passed. It was laid in Parliament as a pappy show. The government and the People's National Movement, they were trying to hoodwink the population, all right? And listen, I am not into the Bacchanal and the Pekong and all of this nonsense. This is pure facts. We have to accept that this is what is taking place and call it out for what it is. The Representation of the People Amendment Bill 2020, that was supposed to be able to have parties register, political parties, ensure that we manage the finances of parties and so forth, and even put offenses for persons who break these penalties and offenses accordingly. What are we doing? Are we going to vote back the PNM? Because I have been a diehard PNM for all of my life, and it's a legacy that in my family we vote that way. And even the UNC had an opportunity. The UNC had an opportunity to ensure that the legislation we needed was placed there. So you can't come and tell me that the UNC is proposing that they will be a better government or they're a government in waiting when they had the opportunity before under the People's Partnership. So let me tell you, the PNM and the UNC are both playing with your future and your children's future and your children's children's future. When are we as a population going to wake up and recognize that better is available, that we have options available? This is the time now, more than ever, to make the right choice. And I'm saying very clearly on behalf of the Progressive Party that the right choice is to be able to look at our alternatives and decide from among them that there are, in fact, individuals who are above board who will represent us well. In San Fernando West, I am going up against the incumbent Faris Alwari, who is the Attorney General, and also Sean Sobers, who is a senator under the United National Congress. Let's understand this. After August 10th, whether it goes any which way in terms of the PNM, the UNC, or even myself winning in that seat, Faris will have a job. Sean will have a job. But if the Progressive Party and myself are not elected in San Fernando West, there is no opportunity for our voice to be heard in the parliament, because the Faris Alwari and Sean Sobers can both be appointed to the Senate, as has been the case. So you have to ensure that there are other voices in parliament. We need to break the freeze that exists on our parliament, where you have two sides of the same coin sitting on opposite sides from one another. That is the task in 2020. The task is to ensure that we have other voices, other political parties, other ideas away from simply PNM and UNC. I don't know how we're going to make this any clearer. And let me address one other thing before we move on. This whole idea of splitting votes, we need to stop that rhetoric. Because the simple fact is no one owns the votes in Trinidad and Tobago. It is not a monopoly. Votes don't belong automatically to the PNM, and votes don't belong automatically to the UNC. So if this country decides to vote 100 ways or 1,000,000 ways, that is our democratic right. So miss me with this nonsense about splitting the vote. We have to really understand what we are up against. You are fighting for your country's democracy. You are fighting to be heard. You are fighting for proper representation in our nation's parliament. And this is what I want the population to understand. All right? So please, we're urging you, check out our policies. We have solid policy positions. We have an opportunity where you can look at our website, progressives.tt, find out our executive board's profiles, get to know the individuals. We are not persons who are hoity-toity and sitting on big state boards and in these companies who are far away from the population. We understand everything that Trinbagonians are going through, and we want to improve the lives of others. All right. So, I mean, coming on the heels of that, guys, Morgan, as we look toward elections 2020, okay, which is just under 5 weeks ago, from now, many persons are of the opinion that third parties coming together, and we refer to ourselves as alternatives, coming together might be the only way to make a difference in this country. I don't know if you want to talk a bit about how we have been handling that experience, because we have been open to the idea of it, but I don't know if you want to just shed some light in terms of what have been some of the considerations in our minds as we treat with that issue.
Yeah, that's not a problem. And actually, I probably might pull in Kelsey towards the end for this, but Basically, over the last couple of weeks, well, I should say months, we have been in talks with the other alternative parties because at the end of the day, we as third parties were created for a specific reason. And that reason was the fact that we have two main parties right now that have completely sort of demolished this idea of democracy and has filtered their power in a certain way that they have prevented other voices from being heard. And the danger with that is that it's a direct reflection. It's not a direct reflection of our population. We have an extremely diverse population. Therefore, the individuals in our parliament should also represent that. And we are not having that right now. So all of these alternative parties were created in the image that these were individuals who came together with the premise of wanting to make Trinidad and Tobago a better place. Now, there are definitely some significant differences that we have probably individually towards each other, but that doesn't take away from the fact that our main purpose and our main goal is to make Trinidad and Tobago the best that it can be, which is not what we're seeing right now. So we have had very lengthy discussions, and there is an understanding that we've come out with two main points. One of the main points being that we want to support each other vocally. We want to endorse each other and be there for each other at all times, because you don't want a situation where you have too many cooks in the kitchen. And we want individuals to understand that, you know, if COP goes on a walkabout, bet your bottom dollar, there will be some progressive party representatives right there by their side, because there has to be a unity as well. There has to be a strength together. The second point is that basically what we would like is that, well, we have non-competition and then, oh wait, which one? I said endorse, right. So we want to endorse, but we also have non-competition with each other, which basically means that we don't necessarily want to put parties within the same constituency, because all that will occur or result out of that is we would basically have a situation where more than likely one of the other two parties would be the ones winning that seat, and that's not what we want. We want more diversity within our parliament. We want more individuals who are not part of PNM and UNC to be part of that lower seat of the parliament, to be able to bring about the things that we are not seeing right now, to bring about campaign finance reform, to bring about the fact that we don't have things and an institution in place to ensure that our citizens who are not in the country can still have a vote. They are still citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. It is in their right to vote, regardless of whether or not they live here, regardless of whether or not they are stuck in another country, based not on their own promise, but the fact that the government has closed the borders. These are all things that they don't have control out of. And why don't we have facilities to ensure that they can vote? So these are some sort of the things that should be in conversation right now that are not. And we have seen it time and time again that things get pushed to the side and are not being put out front that would only benefit with the progression of this country. So I keep saying third parties, but I actually mean alternative, is that we need to ensure that these alternative parties, although we have significant histories within each other, like Progressive Party is one that is only a year old. The COP has been around for quite some time now. PEP has been around for about 3 years. Kelsey, you want to help me out with the other ones that we've had meetings with? MSJ has been around for quite a long time. And what Kelsey
has been around since 2002.
Exactly. So we have had parties that are great. Now the issue, and I think the point of contention that a lot of people have right now, and the worry that they have, is this term coalition. Now, we as a Progressive Party have already said since June, since our launch, and since December, and since January, and we have repeated it over and over again. We are not necessarily interested in a coalition because, as our past has shown, coalitions don't necessarily end too well for our country. What we would rather instead is a joint understanding amongst our parties to know that there are specific goals that we are trying to achieve here, and there's certain disciplinary objections that you have to have in order to achieve those goals. So Kelsey was actually the one who was very adamant on these documents to hold people accountable, because what we saw in these last two actual coalitions was a lack of that, a lack of discipline, a lack of the fact that people weren't reined in, people were not told no, people were allowed to stampede on other parties, and it led to the kind of destruction that has happened and that has occurred. And inevitably, us as citizens are the ones who end up bearing the brunt of that. So Kelsey, you can continue about what that was like.
Okay. Basically, for us, as we said, we are not trying to coalesce, more or less, with other parties. But what I was actually having this conversation earlier with a friend of mine. Everybody in Trinidad thinks differently. We have different backgrounds. We live in different places, and the parliament should reflect that. Yes, there might be persons from other parties that you may not like. You may not like how they say things. You may not like what they say. But at the end of the day, I'm sure there might be people that you work with that you don't like, yet you are able to find some sort of common ground. Lots of people in Trinidad have different religions. They believe in different gods, practice in different places of worship, etc., etc. Yet there's no need for them. They don't discriminate against each other. There's no need for us to have, I don't want to say hate, but distaste for other people. So what I'm trying to say, and this is why I was really big on the idea of holding people accountable, is as long as somebody is not being hateful directly, racist, imperialist, classist, anything like that, we need to be able to engage with them, to be cordial, to have some sort of fellowship with them. We are not trying to become one. We know that everything cannot be kumbaya. And that is why, as I said, as Morgan was saying before, discipline is so important. People have to know limits. There are boundaries. And I think that actually that is why, well, that is the problem that we find ourselves in, because the two major parties, the PNM and the UNC, don't have boundaries. They don't know where they can get off. And so I think for us, when we visualize contesting the 2020 election, at some point, everybody has to know, okay, this is what I can do and this is what I can get away with. And they have to know, listen, there are people here that will hold you accountable. You are responsible for your actions. So that's basically where our thoughts were on that idea. But I see a lot of people asking about common goals, and that's basically the whole point of it. There are commonalities between us. We all want the same thing, and that is a better Trinidad and Tobago. And if we could find at least one, let's say 5 things that we can agree to in terms of when a better Trinidad and Tobago is, I'm sure if you ask all your family members in 5 sentences, tell me what a better Trinidad and Tobago is to you, they would be able to, at some point, you'll find an overlap. Like a Venn diagram, there will be things that you feel and somebody else feels, and you all don't have to be the same. You don't have to agree on everything, but there are things that are key towards building a country and towards, building a nation to where it should be. I'm not too sure if Nicola, if you'd like to come in here.
What I think we can touch on at this point is, I know persons are asking about our policies and what do we intend to do. So it's a good opportunity to speak to that. And let me just see if I can pull that up here. Essentially, we have come up with some policy positions that things, once we work toward them, they can bring about the change that Trinidad and Tobago so desperately is desirous of. All right. So what you can do, you can find these policy positions on our website, progressives.tt, but we will go through them now so that persons can have a good understanding of these policy positions. And let me just bring Kelsey and Morgan back into the frame here. Right. So when we're talking, our first policy position that we have is quality education at all levels, which prepare individuals to overcome and solve their life's challenges. Right now, our education system is really and truly built on the workforce and preparing individuals to be employees, okay? We don't see enough entrepreneurship. We don't even use our education system to prepare individuals for life's challenges. A simple thing like paying taxes and your civic rights and responsibilities. This is what we can use our education system to do, to improve upon. I would love to see that every morning in every classroom across Trinidad and Tobago, they read a newspaper. You start your day off understanding current affairs in Trinidad and Tobago, and you have discussions about those things in the classroom at various levels of learning, of course. So the conversations will be couched differently, be it at a primary school level versus a secondary school level. But the point is, we have to know what is going on in the country, where we're going, where we came from. Number two, a robust public and private health sector which seeks to anticipate, prevent, cure, and rehabilitate in the face of health challenges. We are right now in a global pandemic. Why is Trinidad and Tobago not a leader in finding a cure for COVID-19? I fail to understand or to comprehend that Trinidad and Tobago citizens, those who are qualified in the medical field, are not so qualified to be scholars in their rights, persons who find cures and diagnoses and so forth. So we need to ensure that our health sector is able to take on the world's problems. Because once we're able to operate at that level, there is absolutely no reason why we cannot be effective here in Trinidad and Tobago when it comes to our local issues and concerns. Also, we have to look at a health sector that is driven by technology as well. You should be able to bounce from a private health practitioner and a public health practitioner, and your records are easily accessible by these authorized individuals. It's not for everybody to see, not for the cleaner in the health facility to be able to log into a computer and access your records, but authorized individuals. So this way, any doctor, let's say you, and I want to break it down as simple as you could understand, you fall down in the middle of the road, no one is around you to really pull up your medical record or to say that these are the issues that you have. But when they type in your name from seeing your ID, they can pull up your full medical profile. That is not something that is far-fetched in Trinidad and Tobago. Number four, a national security approach that focuses on crime prevention, detection, and suppression in that order, supported by technology, data, and innovation, with the goal of protecting life, limb, and property, and ensuring social and economic stability. Essentially, it might sound like a mouthful, but what that means is that we are able to ensure that the crime prevention approach or the national security approach goes way beyond simply let me lock them up and then they face their court date whenever, years from now. It has to be an approach that prevents people from even considering crime as an option in this country. All right? Things such as even mediation, rehabilitation, restorative justice. We need to be focusing on these areas as well in terms of that healing process. And I'll touch on 5 and then I'll toss over to either Morgan or Kelsey to pick up from 6 going down a little bit. Number 5, a broad system of justice that itself offers accountability, recourse, flexibility, swiftness, rehabilitation, and respect for human rights and dignities. So this ties in to that national security approach. We have to ensure that when someone appears before a court, when you appear before the justice system in this country, that you are equal in the eyes of the law. We hear that quite often, but how many of us are able to live that reality? How many of us are able to live that reality when you have persons on remand yard who are there in excess of 10 years? Where is justice for these individuals? Where is justice for the 3 men who were murdered in Mova? Murdered. Execution style almost. These are things that are fundamentally wrong with our society when individuals who are not so authorized to be judge and jury and executioner take it upon themselves to pick up these roles. So we have serious issues with these things, and we understand that they have to be cleaned up, and we know that there are options available, and we have presented some positions on these things. I want to toss over to you guys. So from number 7, you all can jump in.
Sure, not a problem. So, oh, I just lost it. Yeah, so we basically, we've seen a lot today about concerning the agricultural sector, and something that has been definitely forgotten about in our society. So agriculture, what we would like to see is that we want to produce high quality production for that can go to our domestic and our foreign markets, and that can be supported by actual strong infrastructural development, technology, incentives, and the access to current and emerging markets. Now, what does that mean? Basically, we want to put the same amount of energy that we are putting into our energy sector into our agricultural sector, because oil and gas is not going to feed us. It is not going to feed our children. It is not going to feed anyone. What feeds us is wholesome food that we can purchase, food that is accessible to everyone. Because right now, not only are we not giving enough attention to our farmers, but we are also not feeding ourselves properly. And our citizens do not have proper access to food, and it has become a severe issue. And this should not be happening in a country with the wealth capacity as ours. So we have completely forgotten the astronomical market that is agriculture, something that needs to be presented more, something that we need to see from primary school to onwards. That's something that children to teenagers to adults slowly begin to recognize why it's important to grow your own food, why it's important to put money into farmers, why farming is something that is extremely necessary. We are going into the future that we don't know how our climate is going to be treating us, because we don't treat our climate well at all. And if we don't know how to feed ourselves and how to adapt properly to that, then we are not going to be ready. And it's not to be morbid and to seem scary and whatnot, but food is your number one priority. Water is your number one priority. And if we don't have the infrastructure to deal with that properly, then we are not going to get to the point that we need to be when the weather gets hotter, when we're not going to be able to predict how everything is going to occur for our crops, because that is not what we're seeing right now. Before, you used to be able to know just how much crops you would get, and we don't have that anymore because we have a climate crisis. And Progressive Party deals heavily with climate change and understanding what we need to do for our climate crisis, and that flows well into our ability to restructure the energy sector, because we cannot continue depending so heavily on oil and gas when both are finite resources that are deeply, deeply dangerous to our environment. We need to start moving on. We need to start figuring out the technology that can go towards ensuring that solar energy, wind energy, hydro energy are all energies that can compete with the type of energy that we get from oil and gas. Now that can take a very long time, but if we don't get the ball rolling on that, we are not going to be able to reach that point. And our energy sector is something that we want to make, we want to make it centered on renewable energy sources, something that we could have knocked out of the park years ago. We are on an island. We have access to the sun 365. We have the ability. We have extremely smart people in Trinidad and Tobago. We have some of the top engineers in the Caribbean. Why is it that we are not funding our engineers properly to form these kind of things, to have more think tanks when it comes to these sort of things? And that is what we as the progressives would like to implement if we became part of the parliament and if we became in government, because these are things that need to be prioritized right now. We do not need another highway. We do not need another interchange. We need to figure out how we are going to survive together in the next couple of years to ensure that this island can still be a sustainable island. Those are things that we need to do. And in order to do that, we also need data. I don't know if you have recognized in the last couple of years when it comes to trying to understand anything in Trinidad and Tobago, we don't have up-to-date data. We don't have enough access to resources. We don't have enough information on how things work in Trinidad and Tobago, how things maneuver itself, what the facts and figures are, because everything has to pass through a bureaucratic system. And by the time it gets published, it's already too late. And we have to redo a whole new study. We need to have more data so that we can see just how far the damage is, how much work needs to be done. And that is not what we have right now. So we want to invest in that significantly so that we would know how to research and develop to meet the current, future, domestic challenges, international challenges, so that we can also contribute to the global body of knowledge and innovation. Again, we have free education in Trinidad and Tobago. We can be investing better in our education in order for us to also be people that other countries need to pluck from, because we are the experts on those things. We can be that, but we are not putting our money where our mouth is. We are extremely wealthy. We have the ability to do these things. We have the ability to sit on these big boards that make decisions for us. Mia Motley has said it time and time again in her last few press conferences when it comes to CARICOM. We are allowing bigger countries to make decisions for us as smaller countries that we cannot necessarily implement. So we need to be just as competitive, just as driven to get those points. So Kelsey, I don't know if you want to jump in now to hit on some of the other policies that we have.
So basically, one of the policies that we have seeks to protect democracy in Trinidad and Tobago. Because as it is, our democracy is under attack. Having those two parties being able to put legislation, not bring legislation to the parliament, not pass bills, voting basically in favor of their finances rather than people of Trinidad and Tobago has to stop. And it has to stop in 2020. We can't wait any longer. And what a progressive government, or even just a progressive MP, would do is vote or bring legislation to the parliament that people can vote on, well, that the MPs can vote on, for change that would actually protect the rights of every citizen in Trinidad and Tobago. So number 15 talks about enhanced democracy that ensures the parliament and other state and decision-making bodies are representative of the diversity of the country in order to produce more relevant legislation and policies. If you're not in your office, you are an elected MP, and you're not in your office, how will you know what the issues of your constituency of your constituents are? How would you know? If your mother's running that office, how would you know? If your friend running the office and you're giving her half the salary or him half the salary, how would you know? You don't even understand. Let's say your particular community is very vocal about, Shusha talking about agriculture, about farmers and farmers' needs. And a bill comes before the parliament, but it's in your party's best interest or your party financiers' best interest for contracts to be given to a particular person. Are you going to go to do you think that they go to their constituents and say, well, I know that this constituency has a lot of farmers in it. How would you like me to vote on this bill? No. Therefore, even though we are paying them to represent us, we are not being represented. We are not benefiting from the system. Therefore, is it really a democracy? No. And that is what we want to change. We want to bring down this whole idea of, well, I'm a parliamentarian and I'm up here and you're down there. And it's like, no, I hired you. So you have to do your job, which is basically to represent me and to help me. And I think a lot of what we have in Trinidad and Tobago is not that. Not everybody have somebody inside somewhere. Not everybody have a friend that they could call. And it needs that entire system of nepotism has to be cut. People might be going to apply for a job. They can't get through. Why? My last name is this or my last name is that. What kind of stupidness is that? We're in 2020. Cannot be allowed to continue. So something else that we would like to do, a progressive government would do, we would like to establish a well-organized and resource sector which emphasizes the importance of culture, sports, tourism as equally in need of preservation, enhancement, innovation, and sustainability in order to achieve meaningful diversification. So yes, we want to change things now, but we also want things to be able to last, right? So we want to invest in structures and infrastructure that will better the lives of us now. So let's just like an example, the interchange that they just built at QREP. It wasn't comfortable sitting in all of that traffic for years, but the interchange was built and the traffic has been alleviated up until they reach UE lights now, right? So, we were uncomfortable, but it was only for a short period of time. In the long run, hopefully, things will get better. I think that is basically how Trinidad and Tobago has been going. Except we've been uncomfortable for most of the time. So a little thing get better, we say, okay, they're doing stuff. No. It can't be allowed to continue. Tourism is very important to Trinidad, but we don't really sell it effectively. If we sell tourism, it's most times just along the lines of Carnival, and that is just once a year, selling fets. Carnival is not all year round. We don't market the idea of Tobago as effectively. Yes, they just built a I Heart Tobago sign, but COVID, so it's not to say people can come to Trinidad and Tobago anyway, so it's not really effective, is it? Another policy that we have is that we would like to institute is an e-government framework which promotes interconnectivity by using the latest technology in every aspect of the public service and enhances the skill set of public servants so that they may continue to enjoy employment underscored by adaptability. Technology is all around us. Given COVID, a lot of teaching had to be switched from being face-to-face, obviously, to online. A lot of children don't have laptops, don't have computers, their parents don't have a phone. These are things that hinders education because yes, we understand that screen time, not all screen time is good time for children, but interactive devices can benefit education and can benefit children and even adults. Why? Because it increases communication, it increases productivity. That's just like a long time when you had massive phones. Not that I was alive for that. When you had huge phones. Now phones are they're smaller, but they're able to do more things. They have cameras attached to them. They have voice recorders attached to them. So having all of this technology built into an education system, built into the public sector, will diversify it. Not everything has to be pen and paper anymore. Yes, we understand that pen and paper is still valuable, and you will have a whole set of files that you will have to create a digital database of, but it will be worth it in the long run because we'll always have storage or it will always be accessible to persons everywhere. Nikolai?
policy positions that we want you all to chime in on. And you can see our policy positions at progressives.tt, and you go under commitments. All right. So we want you to check out that. And we see at the bottom of this here, donate to us using a credit card by visiting our website. Listen, the simple fact is that the reason why alternative parties don't enjoy the kind of success that they have the potential to enjoy, they have to get funding, resources. And we are in a situation where the country says, we don't want you taking money from big financiers, all right? And we too agree with that. But this is where you, the average man and woman, have to step forward and invest in a party that you think represents you best, all right? It is very important for us to enjoy that kind of assistance. This is your investment in Trinidad and Tobago. If you think that the Progressive Party has great ideas, then invest in us, and then our ideas can be even better, all right? Let me tell you, even investing $20, and I want to break it down to you, investing $20, we can get a phone card. And with that phone card, we can spend time calling individuals, letting them know that the Progressive Party is having an event, or letting them know that you have to come out and vote and X, Y, and Z. That helps us. It even allows us to call onto radio programs and so forth and get our message out there. So please, you have to consider investing in these alternative parties. And I'm not just talking about for Progressive Party. Think about which party represents you best. We are saying that you have options, and you have to consider these options in order to really succeed, for us to have a better Trinidad and Tobago. I want to spend some of this remaining time here because I know time is going. I want to let you know specifically what is the role and function of an MP, your member of parliament. Your member of parliament is not here to pave roads, build bridges, fix drains. That is local government. And I want that to be very clear. It is local government's responsibility for those kinds of initiatives. It is also not your responsibility as an MP to embark upon mega projects. Members of parliament, constituency offices do not get a budget. It is there. You can look it up on the parliament's website to better understand it. You can go onto my page as well, Nikolai Edwards, Nikolai Jean-Paul Edwards on Facebook, and you will see my manifesto for San Fernando West. And in there, I detail that you can in fact understand what is the role and function of an MP. So on average, I think it is $50,000 per month is given for staff. So that is staff salaries. That's the only money that the office receives. And the office doesn't even receive that money. It is paid directly to the workers by the parliament. Also, when you think about equipment, so computer equipment and stationery, all of these things are paid for by the parliament. We need constituency budgets. So if it means that each constituency in Trinidad and Tobago gets 1 million or 2 million or 5 million per year, it allows for the MP to do projects. Imagine an MP cannot even host a town hall meeting because he does not have the money to rent a facility, even a community center, because you have to rent the community center. You have to probably bring forth refreshments. You may have to get a PA system, whatever the case is. All of these things cost money, and MPs do not have money. All right. So we have to change the legislation to accommodate these things so that MPs can better represent their constituents. I want you to know what my plan for San Fernando West in particular is. All right. I have come forth with the idea. And what that simple plan is, understand what the role and function of an MP is. So simple is an acronym, SIMPLE. The S stands for social development, I, infrastructural revitalization, M, modern technology, P, promotion of culture and sport, L, legislative participation, and E, economic stimulation. When we think about social development, what I have in mind in terms of my role and function as the Member of Parliament for San Fernando West, we want to find out what are the issues plaguing the constituents, and we are going to have that in a database, and we are going to lobby on your behalf. It means me marching into the Ministry of Social Development. It means me using question time in Parliament to question the Minister of Social Development as to why my constituents are not receiving their social assistance grants. That is what your MP is supposed to be doing. Is your MP doing that right now? That is the question you need to ask. But I am proposing that once I am the Member of Parliament for San Fernando West, I will be embarking upon that. When we think about infrastructural revitalization, my plan for San Fernando West is to ensure that we seek out institutions that can provide funding to property owners in San Fernando, so business owners and so forth, so that they can revitalize the infrastructure in the city. Also, you need to ensure that if the government is renting any property, it has to be up to standard. We see where public servants are working in heinous conditions throughout the country in many cases. We have to put an end to that. So I, as the MP, shall lobby the government to make sure we have things in place when it comes to our contracts, our rental agreements, and so forth, that they have to undertake, the owners, annually upgrades as it becomes necessary. And it means in some cases beautification projects, but also infrastructural revitalization speaks to roads and bridges and drains and these things. I will be a lobbyer on your behalf. I cannot promise you that my office is going to build it, but every time there is a city council meeting and I have the opportunity to go in there and sit there, I will find out and query, why are we not moving these projects forward? And when we look at modern technology, we want to ensure that the MP's office is a virtual office. I will ensure that San Fernando West has the first ever virtual MP or constituency office. It means that you will be able to log online, go to a site and lodge your complaints or lodge your issues. You can meet with your MP via Skype or via Zoom because this system is built in, all right? We are going to create that virtual constituency office. Promotion of culture and sport. And also with that office, once you go online, you can check the progress of your requests. That is something that we are prepared to implement within the first month of me assuming office as your next Member of Parliament for San Fernando West. When it comes to promotion of culture and sport, in Trinidad and Tobago and in San Fernando West in particular, we are seen as a hub for culture and sport. So we will ensure that all cultural and sporting groups in San Fernando West are brought together, given the training they need for capacity building. We want them to have proper organizational structure. We want them to have proper bank account setup. We want them to have an accountant who is available to them so that they can ensure that their accounts are up to standard and so forth. We have to help these organizations. These are the organizations that are on the ground. When we think about Best Village, when we think about sporting activities and so forth, we need to ensure that they are able to fulfill their mandate properly. And the first step is that they have the administrative functioning and responsibilities. Legislative participation. When last has your Member of Parliament come and ask you your position on bills that are before the Parliament? That is the first responsibility of your Member of Parliament. What I would ensure, if I am to go a step further, at every sitting of Parliament, we will make accessible to the constituents of San Fernando West an opportunity to come into the Parliament and sit in the gallery and listen firsthand to the goings-on of our Parliament. Our Parliament should not be far away from the citizens of this country. We need to bring it closer to them. So I am going to ensure that we are able to allow constituents to participate. Every month, we will be having town hall meetings that will allow for individuals to give their thoughts on legislation. You can write in, and as your Member of Parliament, I will be referring to these things in the Parliament. And the last thing in the simple acronym is economic stimulation. How are we going to stimulate the economy in San Fernando? When I look around San Fernando, I'm seeing a lot of buildings for rent and for sale, and I'm shocked that Faris isn't taking advantage of that. But I mean, we have a situation right now where we need to ensure that persons, business comes to San Fernando in a real way. We need to have the conditions, and the conditions right now do not exist. Some of the conditions speaks to security. All right, your safety is important. The environment, we need a clean environment in San Fernando so for people can conduct business and so on and so forth. But even more than that, I want to see venture capitalists in San Fernando putting their money where their mouth is. So we will have an economic roundtable, and this economic roundtable will ensure that individuals, those are investors, entrepreneurs, small business owners, and the like, and even from a policy standpoint, technocrats are able to sit and devise a plan where we can make funding available on terms and conditions that are extremely, extremely favorable. So these are just some of the simple ideas I have for San Fernando West. Remember, your job and function as an MP is not to build mega projects, but to first represent the constituents of your constituency. And let me bring in Kelsey and Morgan here as we wrap up. So guys, when you think about it, an hour passed so quickly, and we really appreciate a lot of the questions, a lot of the comments, and let me tell you, we're doing this for you, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. We're doing it for only you. We don't have big financiers with an agenda behind us. We are seeing how we can step forward. Why have you all educated us with your tax-paying dollars, if not to be able to use our knowledge and our experiences for your betterment? I ask the question, what would you rather us do? Do you want us to sit on the block and waste time? Do you want us to get involved in all kinds of activities, nefarious activities? No, we don't want to waste away. We are using our young, energetic minds and our ideals to help make Trinidad and Tobago a better place. So for all of those persons who want to tear us down, or try rather to tear us down and say, well, we ain't getting no votes and we're wasting our time, let me tell you something. In service to country and in service to countrymen, there is no such thing as wasting time, because every single moment, every breath of air that you breathe in, and you know that you're using that opportunity to help someone else, trust me, we are making indents in society and making some headway. So I hope you can see our passion. I hope you can see our excitement. And we are going to govern this country one day. There is no mistake about it. We, and when I say we, I'm talking about the younger generation. I'm talking about the alternative parties. I'm talking about those persons who decided to break away from the idea that PNM and UNC are our only options. We are going to govern Trinidad and Tobago, and during that time of our government, you're going to see the greatest level of progress ever in our country's history. So let me allow Morgan and Kelsey your final words so that we can wrap this virtual town hall meeting.
Sure. Kelsey, you can go ahead. Your mic is not working. Not sure why. Okay. I'll just do it for Kelsey. I think I'll speak on her behalf as well. We have really joined this party, and we've become part of this movement because we are doing this for not only ourselves, but for our fellow citizens, as Nikolai said. And it is extremely important that somebody finally stands up and says enough is enough. We need to do something about this situation that we are in. We need to do something for our country. We talk and talk and talk, and there's not enough action. And actions speak louder than words. I know that from my alma mater, Holy Name Convent, big shout out. But we know what we have to do. We have to be a part of this. And for everyone that doubts alternative parties, ask yourself this. What are these two parties really doing for us that you can strongly back up something that they are? Because I have not seen it. We are 2020, and yet we don't have basic amenities to us. So we really need to sit down and look in the mirror and really reflect on how far our country has come and how far we can go. And if this is enough, if we are really okay with the state that we are in. Because for me, I don't think it is. I don't think this is enough. I don't think we should ever settle for anything less than we deserve. And we don't deserve this. no matter what lies we try to tell ourselves, no matter how many excuses we make for these politicians, we do not deserve this. We deserve the best because we are the best. We produce the best. So we need to get our act together. We need to put our votes to the right individuals, and we need to change this country for the best. So thank you all. I guess I'll do the closing remarks, but thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. It was very an impromptu live, but we enjoyed it as usual. Thank you for contributing with your comments. Continue to be a part of the conversation. Continue to reach out to us. Continue to support us. It is extremely important. We cannot do this alone. We need to do it with all of you. You are exceptionally important to this organization and to the betterment of Trinidad and Tobago. And don't forget about that. So have a great evening, and you will hear from us time and time and again because we have a very short time until August 10th, so we will be in your face. So have a wonderful, wonderful evening, everyone. I hope all of you have sweet dreams, and we'll see you soon.